DPI. So when we go to the next slide, from paper to data, agile data. All the beginning, we faced 3 core problems: data fragment, manual verification, lack of real-time visibility, and the sector was open but not synchronized as well. So the first transformation was about structure. We focused on digital workflow, integration actions, creating accessible centralized data, and the main one is not involving for innovation's sake but governance. The first transformation was the MIMS, the first project we had 5 years ago. So this was introducing before the EUDR. What changed was traceability begins at the dispatch. Workflow was integrated, processing, quality control, warehouse, exporters, and the processing time reduced significantly. Record became centralized and digitalized. This creates the opportunity to backbone for the national traceability system. Then the EUDR comes. So through EUDR when EUDR was introduced for a lot of countries, it was restart, right? So for Ethiopia, it was an evolution. So we evolved from MIMS to ECTMS. So because we already had a digital backbone, we were able to extend traceability upstream, integrate geospatial verification, strings chain from custody control. Technically, EUDR did not start over around transformation, it's accelerated it. So from system to DPI, how do we get here? So all these stages, something important happened. The system stopped being just a system. It became digital public infrastructure. DPI means founding digital systems that enable coordination, public and private services at national scale. The evolution from MIMS to ECTMS was not just a software upgrade. It reflects collaboration between the Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, the policy leader, to Vulcan ICT, the technical design implementer, and the developer partner, just like GIZ and other entities. So this collaboration embedded traceability into the national governance. So what systematically changed? So my partner will give you the identification of some of the sample farmers we have. So in the back, you can find their QR code. You can scan it and see what they're doing. So the transformation was not just technological. It reduced governance, accountability, and data ownership as well. Now traceability begins at the farm and continue through exporter. And our core capabilities was digital farm registration, GPS mapping for polygons, batch level QR code traceability, integrating deforestation risk assessments, and into-it movement traceability. So now it's we're just not doing a compliance. It's just more than a compliance. This is the ECTMS is not just a traceability system. It's much more than that. Traceability is often seen as a regulation burden, but in Ethiopia case, it became a market access. That means transport, export, dispatch requests, quality control, bag selections, structured data from trade and reports, and so traceability shifted from compliance pressure to market confidence as well. So what we get from this is digital transformation is incrementally and crucial. The second one is early digitalization reduce further regulatory shocks. The third one is public-private collaboration strengthens institutional systems. So farm-level traceability must balance compliance with inclusions. So all this we did is to build something for the farmers, to the government, and to the market as well. Looking ahead, ECTMS is not just the ending. We're just beginning. Through this, we're planning to expand to additional commodities, strengths in the enhancing environment analytics, and many more. It's not limited. Everything can be much more than what we have. The infrastructure exists. The opportunity is to build on it. So we will like for all of you to discuss on some things. As you can see here, we have some questions. So I think you guys already seen the samples. So how can we make the farmer's life much more easier, and how can we help them grow to something much more? So there, as we said earlier, farmers are the backbones of our community. So how can we help them? So let's just, as a circle, let's just discuss about that, and we can continue our discussion. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I think my partner will answer that question as well. Uh,
Technically, GIS supports the development of the traceability system. And, oh, I think I was a teacher, so I can use loud sounds. So it doesn't cost us so much. The developers were the volcanicity, the first memes, and the traceability system also developed by them. So maybe we do need some supports on implementing this system, because we have to train the farmers. We have to do some infrastructures around the farm area. But also there was a challenge. We can't say there is no challenge, because collecting those spatial data were also one challenge. So we forced the exporters and the other cooperatives and unions should have to collect those spatial data by themselves and bring to the central database. By the way, this system is not only a traceability system. It do have a backend of a centralized database, and also back office issues like all paperwork changes to requested by exporters or any other customer should request their services online. So it's not only traceability, it do have a lot of features on it. So it costs, yeah. Did I answer your question? Yes. Thank you, sir. So can we go to the discussion group, or is there any other point that you can raise? Okay. Yeah, by the way, it's not the mandate of Ethiopian Convening Authority only. The mandate goes to the INSA and Minister of Innovation, but about the data's privacy. And currently we are hosting the system in the INSA server, so data privacy is not a matter for the farmers. And also the ownership of that spatial data is always for the farmer and the government, not about the exporters. Even if the exporter and the suppliers invest to collect those spatial data, the ownership of the data will be going to the farmer. So the farmer shouldn't be limited to sell his coffee to only that exporter. He can sell to anybody. Mhm.
But to his question, now we have 7 million farmers. How do you get approvals for every time someone wants to access? Let's assume a bank wants to access a certain
Yeah.
farm and see whether this farm has a credit profile that they can give funds to. Does each individual farmer have to approve, or
Mhm.
is that something the government can say, you guys can use this information? We have talked somehow the farmers are in agreement because I'm looking at these are 7 million farmers. How is that practice going to work?
In this case, we do have 5.2 million smallholder farmers, and the Ministry of Agriculture also developed a big system which is named by NARLES, in which all biographies, all informations about that spatial data in the farmer is already stored in that database. So we are going to integrate this traceability system with that. And then about the privacy and the privilege on the system, the producer should have to approve everything. And the system is batch-based, so every coffee transfer from the producer to the other buyers should be approved by the producer. Do you have anything to add on it?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, she was right. She said everything. So each farmer have to approve when he sell the coffee. So the next one will get a batch of the one that have been approved. That's why we give them the ID for the farmers, so that to show them that we see them. You matter. This is your data. This is what you have. So the more the farmer knows what he have, when he sell, he knows what he's doing. So most of the data are under the farmers as well.
Question about incentivizing participation. Is the key value proposition for those using the system the ability then to validate information for export? Or does the system provide other functions for the farmers who are contributing to that effort? Or is it just strictly about validating for export?
Not only validating, but the system is not just a traceability system. So through the system, there is quality control, there is dispatch request, there is a lot more infrastructure in the system. So using the system is actually mandatory for everybody, because 5 years ago, they used to use it for quality control and dispatch. So each coffee batch that is moving through the country is recorded through dispatch. So we take that to the farm level. So that means each coffee that travels from the farm to the export will be tracked as well. So they don't need incentivization or anything. Yeah, it's just a requirement. Yeah, yeah, of course.
So, but you don't then analyze trends in terms of volume produced year after year that the farmer could use to help improve management practices or measurements of productivity, disease detection and amongst crops. You don't use it for that. You just use it for that validation piece.
Yeah, actually, our next update will be one of those things, because, like I said, like I said, it's not just HTMS is just the beginning of it. So the system is modular. So we are planning to make it even much more bigger. So we already have the data of the farmer, how much does they make per year, how much are they producing. So each year when we register their crop, so we see the trends, how they're doing. So on our next update, I think we'll be able to do that as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
To add some point, the system uses the Global Forest Watch for forest risk management system. So this is maybe one additional feature that the system has. So to use our time, I think it's better if we rotate our chairs to backside and discuss on the points that we have been given. Yeah, that's better.
You want us to face each other?
That's good. It's better to be face to each other. Yeah. This mic? Okay. Yeah. So are we going to take some notes? Oh, okay. So as a discussion point, the first point is how are other countries approaching from level traceability? So is there any other country which is implementing this traceability system, and how are you guys approaching for farm level? So the first discussion point is this, so please use the mic when you have anything to say.
This discussion is to learn our experience. So you give us something, we give you something. So together we can make something out of it. So yeah, let's do it, and let's see.
So just a quick one from me. I'm from Kenya. My name is Joshua Ariga with Gates Foundation. The traceability that I'm aware of, and I don't have the details, is livestock traceability in Kenya. And this is being done in some counties, not all of them. And it's more like tagging the animals, on the ears and tracking them for. This is to follow up on vaccinations, so that if we are importing meat, for example, and there's an outbreak of a disease, that is easy to track and vaccinate. So some counties are moving ahead with the traceability. On the farm level, other crops, I mentioned earlier, there's a data that has been collected by the government on 7 million farmers. And it's to do with what they have on their farm, what crops they have, how many animals, whatever. All that information has been collected. Now, but nobody's tracing yet, but the foundation is funding what I mentioned, AI for advisory services, that is going to use that data set to inform farmers on a number of things, including rainfall patterns and things like that. But it's not ready yet. It's just the beginning of that initiative.
Thank you very much. Similarly for Zimbabwe, we are implementing a livestock traceability system. So the core objectives basically of this traceability system is on issues to do with disease control and management. Also, this is the issue of facilitating markets. As you know, Zimbabwe, we are trying to get back into that EU preferential market. So this livestock traceability system has been identified as one of the key steps towards getting back to that. Then also the issues of reduction of theft, improvement of herd management. So these are the major core objectives of the livestock traceability system in Zimbabwe. And this traceability system is also embedded in our livestock information management system, where we can then, in terms of implementing our limbs, in terms of the national head in the different regions, and also in terms of when there are disease outbreaks, we can easily track in which regions, so that when we want to implement issues of green zones, red zones, and so on. So in terms of implementation, we're at the formative stages of that. And I think the key challenge in that is the operationalization of it, because the basics have been done, but how do we operationalize it, and how do we embed it in the bigger agricultural information management system or livestock information management system of the country?
You go ahead, Vinod.
Just because I'm from India, and I think similar things have been tested in India as well. So one of the key bits was about voice level, AI-related agricultural data. So this was implemented in 5 states in India, and I think it reached around 38,000 farmers and some 80 villages. And the idea was that essentially, and this was really far rural areas, so majority of the data was always through, pen and papers and stuff. So there are 2 organizations, again, they are completely fragmented. I don't think so they have interoperable. One of them was Madhvan AI. There's another organization. They use that through voices. They can, they can feed the data, and it will be converted into an, kind of a form that will include their information about where they are from, what crops they are working on, and so on and so forth. I think it worked really well. So, the reports that came out was that it was tested, it was piloted, and it came out really well. But then if you compare it, I think in terms of challenges, it's fragmentation definitely, because, and at scale, it has not been, it has not been yet implemented because there are resources, they are obviously time constrained at times, and I think financial resources is one of the key major areas, challenges that was faced there.
Okay, so I represent Canada's sheep farmers and ranchers. We're the national advocacy body. So in Canada, we have traceability regulations. We have had national mandatory ID since 2004, so a requirement to tag all of the bison, cattle, and sheep. And we have a new regulatory amendment being proposed that would require then the full traceability of those animals through their life cycle. Sorry, pigs was in there too. I don't know if I mentioned pigs. So we've been working on, we've had what we would call traceability systems. The sheep industry was managing our data under the cattle sector's umbrella. When they proposed the new regulations, and it became quite evident that the systems needed to be more sophisticated, and they were going to create fairly significant administrative burden for our farmers who had already been tagging animals, and were concerned that now we were adding trace requirements to it. Our sector started developing our own trace system. The way it works in Canada is the federal government sets the regulations, but national industry groups are responsible for delivering the systems that manage the data that is regulated. So it was our job to make sure we have a system that fits those regulations. We didn't feel confident that what we had was going to be very effective. We had much more of a data repository sort of thing, more like a digital library and a lot less like an agile data platform, right? With any sort of interoperability or functionality in it besides just looking up reports. So we set out to build new technology in 2019 when blockchain was all the rage. No longer all the rage, still very effective at managing trace systems, but you can manage trace without blockchain. It does help validate transactions, so we retain that functionality on the back end to, well, we call it building trust. It just means keeping people honest, right? The algorithms ensure that the validity of the transactions. But what we have found through the implementation of it is if you're doing a traceability system just for a regulation, you're essentially creating an insurance policy, right? Something that you're always paying into, or in this case, something that you're always contributing your data to, but you never get anything in return until and unless there's a disease outbreak, and clearly you never want a disease outbreak. So if you don't add some value to that system, you've just created an insurance scheme that nobody ever gets access to it, right? And so when we set out for the design, because we represent our farmers, we went to all of our on-the-ground stakeholders. We knew what the regulations were. We could have built it just to suit that, but that's the stick approach. You have to do it because law says. And having been a farmer myself, I'm quite sure most farmers don't like to do things because they're told to. They like to do things because there's a value to them for it. So we went to each of our stakeholders in the supply chain and said, define your value proposition. What is it in the system that you need for that system to be worthwhile for you? We know that the government wants it to be worthwhile in terms of being able to respond rapidly to a disease outbreak, even though that report repository system doesn't do that. But what do you need? And it was an interesting exercise because it ultimately boiled down to identifying your product, in this case an animal, and knowing something about that product. What you wanted to know differed based on who you were as a stakeholder, but ultimately it's about collecting and collating information about that product through its production cycle that any subsequent owner or authority might need. So, example, if you're a farmer and you're buying breeding stock, you can affix the genetic indexing of that animal to its history. Then when the regulation says you do a move-in report, that's a requirement under law. Now when that animal becomes part of your inventory, you have that information about its genetic indexing, whether or not it's been vaccinated, what products it's been treated with through its life cycle, and you collate those from owner to owner. And that becomes sort of that carrot approach to building the system. So I think that's one of the learnings, is the value add. The other challenge we've always seen with building traceability systems, everybody agrees that it's really important to have an effective trace system that responds. People seldom argue against it. But where we get the most pushback is around the administrative burden associated with collecting and remitting your regulated requirements, your information. How do you get it into the system? So then we started building tools that help with more autonomous data collection that will also, for example, do early disease detection and that sort of thing. So just a few learnings from our experience, how regardless of whether there's regulations or not, if you have more carrot in your system, if you have multiple functionality, things that service producers, ways to track their production over time, disease outbreaks or implications over time, and measure that, then I think that provides that really good incentive for people to be involved. And of course, you have to manage cost, but there's ways to manage cost if you know how to do it yourself, as opposed to ag tech firms. So I always worry about how 90% of ag tech startups fail. And so as an industry group, we couldn't in good conscience license products from elsewhere, because we are responsible for making sure our producers always have a system that they can report to as part of that regulatory package. So taking ownership, it's not easy to develop, but taking ownership then allows industry groups and the farmers that they represent to be more autonomous in how they manage their systems.
One of the struggles we had as well was let's say we can collect data from the farmers, but what if the farmer didn't use the system as well? So not because he don't want to use it, because maybe he doesn't have a smartphone. So if he can't transfer for the next person or the supplier or for someone, how are they able to use that? So at this age, I think everybody have a phone, even the farmers, they have a phone, whether it's what do you call it? Whether it's smartphone or a normal phone, they have a phone. So what we came up with was not only the IDs, but the supplier can scan the ID. After he scanned the ID, he fill in how many coffee he's buying from that farmer. Then when he submits it, so the farmer can get it through SMS or USID, so that he can approve with any phone. So that would be much more easier for the farmer. We don't put so much strain on the farmer, because they just want to farm. They don't want to do anything. So we're going toward this as well. So yeah.
Hello, I represent Veritas. We work in the coffee sector with farmers. We collect a lot of farm data across the world. And on the first question, I think there was a gentleman from the Uganda Farmer Association earlier today, and he was talking about national data warehouse that they're building. So they've taken, I think, some of your steps, following some of your steps, but perhaps 3 or 4 years later, EUDR was the impetus for them to start collecting farmer IDs and drawing polygons. So there's about 1.6 million farms in Uganda, slightly less than in Ethiopia. It's about 2 million plus, I believe.
Yeah, I think
so
5.2.
5.2 even, yeah. If you include everyone, producers, yeah, commercial and non-commercial farms, altogether, it's a big number. And I sit on the Uganda. I sit on the National Coffee Platform Committee that we meet every month. So we talk a lot about that process. They're still in the process of actually building the database. It's taken a year and a half. But a couple of challenges I wanted to highlight that they've encountered there. One is the accuracy of drawing polygons and how accurate they are. So it's a process that has to be refreshed and reinforced. Because one, in the different ways of how you do it, and the accuracy of it is very important. And secondly, is the private sector, big operators, big buyers of coffee, have their own traceability systems. They know where their coffee comes from, who are their suppliers. So their uptake of this parallel big state-controlled traceability system or mechanism that is being built is an important consideration, see how they will be able to integrate and share their data and actually start using the national traceability system long term. I don't think it's a much of a problem in Ethiopia, but in other countries that are following your footsteps, those are some of the challenges that they're facing. And one more thing, I know for you it may be interesting to look at the case study for Ghana, for cocoa. They're considered to be the best in class in terms of traceability system that they build to meet the EUDR requirements.
Yeah,
I cannot speak much detail to that, but it'll be interesting for you to.
Yeah, I think I've heard about that as well on our last not seminar but a webinar. There was some presentation about the Ghana doing the same traceability system as well. So yeah, I think I've seen about that as well. And international regulations necessarily accelerates for digital transformation. Who have idea?
I would say they are not necessary, but definitely enabling. If we want to do a cross-border trade, for example, if different countries, they have different format, different verification system, I think that's definitely challenging. And if we want to enable cross-border trade, I think it's helpful to go by the international standards. I think it also reduces compliance. For example, if the same company is working with business and different companies and they all have different standards, they will have to definitely, and I think we want our systems to talk to each other so that the same data can be helpful if required, elsewhere as well. So yeah, I would say not necessary, but definitely required.
Just a quick one. We commissioned a study on avocados in Kenya because there was a huge market in requirements in the international markets for traceability in other crops as well. Especially if you are
Implemented, right?
It shouldn't. I agree with that.
So it's not that the standard should be forced upon. What I meant was that organization coming and enforcing on something new. That's not what we mean by that.
I agree with you. So as our moderators are left, so let's move to the next question. How can DPI balance compliance requirements with farmer inclusion? This is, I think, this question perfectly goes to the Canadian. If you start first, please.
Yeah. To the animal's history within the trace system, then it moves with them by virtue of those reporting requirements that you have as they move across the supply chain. So you create, and we have a myriad of other programs which all sit in silos. So welfare programs, antimicrobial use and resistance strategies, whether or not people are participating in those programs, treatment records in order to access the EU from the animal health regulations perspective. So it becomes administrative burden if a producer only has to enter the information once and not once in this system, once in this system, once in this system. Moves your assurance information out there, genetic indexing information out there, so you capture weights or size or growth, and you put it in one system, it moves it out, analyzes it, comes back in, attaches to the animal, and goes across the supply chain. I think it's critically important.
But let's go with you too.
APIs that connect to various systems to pull and push data in and out of those. Again, so as not to duplicate them, but also to bridge that gap between those silos. We use blockchain on the back to authenticate transactions, the validity of those transactions. So that's the underpinning part of it. And then, so I think that was your question, is what with the platform.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, is there anyone?
I mean, just a small one when we're thinking about for households and so on, where you're below a certain threshold, then it's subsidized fully by the state. But above that, the larger farms should have the market incentive anyway to participate in the system because of the trading benefits. But there may be a capability deficit on the smaller ones. I don't know how that's working in the coffee sector in Ethiopia, but
yeah, most coffee farms in Ethiopia are much more smaller. So even a simple supplier can have more than 1,000 farmers. So we don't expect all those farmers to have phones. So the way we're trying to approach it is when the supplier can buy it from the farmer, but if the farmer have a smartphone, good, he can log into the system, he can transfer it. But at the same time, we're planning to do the SMS as well. So in any phone, it can work. All he have to do is send a request. When he send a request, it gives it to the farmer, so he can just type a password or something. So it can automatically approve it as well. So we don't expect them to have everything. So instead of making them go forward, they can take a step gradually. Yeah.
So the last question is, personally, I asked this question our Prime Minister once I get the chance about the data sovereignty. So how do we ensure interoperability while preserving national data sovereignty? So I really want to get some answer from you guys, especially.
Add one very quick thing here. I think it's interoperability means sharing common standards and not common databases. So you keep your data in your national systems. You create common APIs through which you only submit the queries that are essential, not the whole data. And I think that's what we mean by interoperability. And I think it's not going to affect your data sovereignty in any way if implemented and if used properly. And that's why these standards are required.
It depends on the type of data, right?
Yeah, as long as it's in your national system. So I think a lot of time we get confused that, okay, when we say common standards, we have to have one big database about. I'm just talking about, say, agriculture. Just have one big pool of database. That's not what we mean by interoperability. What we mean that is they should be able to talk to each other, and that can happen if you know that there are common standards through which we need to plug in our APIs. And they are essential data points that are restricted, that, okay, this information should not be shared at any cost, which are confidential. I think you would be able to have these two balanced together. I think it's easier said than done, but I think that's one way to do it.
Okay.
I just wanted to add on to that, a very, very important point. We've been trying to get data from a lot of partners in Kenya, and we formed a community of practice on data. And most of them, surprisingly, misunderstand this concept. They think when you are sharing data, they are going to give you the data and you keep it on your whatever. So it has made some of them refuse to say, no, we don't want to give our data. So I think it's a very important concept to share with widely for people to understand. Interoperability doesn't mean that I'm taking your data, but I'm accessing certain statistics from there. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes.
I wanted to point that out. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. What security key to access it? So we've done a access to data. So for example, government authorities have access to regulated data. So those are the buys and aggregate that data that helps us make decisions that help us grow the industry. So it keeps personal data private and the issuing based on permissions at the discretion of the farmer or the stakeholder, because we have to remember in our supply chain you have farmers, transporters, feedlots, auction marts, so all of your holders might be collecting and attributing certain pieces of data. So it's not just farmers, but it's the stakeholders writ large. And they can set permissions on who can access data besides the regulated data, which just by virtue of the regs require that the federal government accesses them.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope we do have a lot of issues to discuss within the left days. So we are done now. I think you do have something to say.
If you don't mind, you could scan this and just share some takeaways from this session, some insights you have, so we can collect a little bit what comes out of these sessions. Thank you. And then in about 15 at 1/2 we carry on. You check your second sticker and you find the room, and we will carry on at 1/2. Yeah? This is your second session. 15 minutes, yeah.
Sorry, guys, can I have the front line? If you want to, you can get it, but just